Fire ants are the architects of living rafts. For most of us, a raft is built from wood or bamboo, tied together with rope. But fire ants do it differently. They build their rafts from flesh, claws and jaws. One by one, thousands of brave worker ants lock their jaws onto the legs of others. They grip, they clamp, weaving themselves into a living mesh. A living raft is an extraordinary survival mechanism. Its primary function is to keep the colony from drowning. Without it, floodwaters would submerge the nest, destroying eggs and larvae, and even killing the queen, the very heart of the colony. By floating on water, the raft does more than save a single ant. It preserves their entire social and biological order. When the rainy season arrives and water begins to seep into the underground nest, the fire ant colony does not panic, like most small insects would. In that critical moment, they rush to weave a living raft without waiting for orders, without a single architect to lead them. They are guided by ancient instinct, forming their raft with stunning precision. Without hesitation, they link together. One ant's jaws clamp onto a leg, its legs grip the body of another ant, and this motion spreads like a wave. It begins with the first group of ants submerged by the rising water, forming the foundation layer known as the pontoon. The pontoon serves as the base of the raft. Above it, other ants climb up, carrying larvae, pupae, and the queen. Amazingly, this process follows a perfect instinctive order, as if each ant knows its place. Which ones must endure the depths below, and which ones must rise to the safety of the top. In less than 100 seconds, the colony can form a complete living raft. In building this raft, the ants create multiple layers. The first layer is made of the strongest adult ants, usually the ones experienced in life outside the nest. In other words, in this living raft, the ants of the bottom layer are the brave soldiers bearing the weight of the entire colony. The ants below do not sink because their bodies trap microscopic air pockets, creating a natural floating foundation. The middle layer is composed of carrier ants, tasked with weaving the living structure while holding the colony's most precious cargo, eggs, larvae, and pupae. At the very top sits the queen, surrounded by her caretakers and guards. Her position is sacred, for she is the heart of the colony. Amazingly, every single fire ant knows its position through pheromones and experience. They follow chemical trails left on the bodies of other ants, adjusting themselves like living links in an organic, breathing net. Researchers have discovered that the ants do not simply cling together. They lock onto each other in a three-dimensional formation, adjusting body angles, head orientation, and leg positions to form a structure that is strong yet flexible. Each body acts as a node in a bridge. If one part is pulled, the force is redistributed, keeping the raft intact. This living structure can withstand fast currents, waves, and even collisions with debris. Yet beyond the impressive engineering, there is something deeply moving about the raft's formation. Not a single ant tries to save itself. Even the ants at the very bottom, pressed against the water, remain in place, bearing the weight of the colony, even as their bodies weaken or die. Remarkably, when a bottom layer ant grows tired or limp, ants from the upper layers descend to replace it. This rotation of duty happens swiftly, silently, and automatically, a perfect display of instinctive teamwork. A fire ant raft is not merely a floating island. It can move, steering itself towards safety. By shifting their weight, paddling with legs and jaws, and responding to the water's current, fire ants can navigate toward land. The movement is slow but purposeful and precise. When the ants detect a leaf, a branch, or a small riverbank, the outermost ants guide the raft toward it, sometimes even jumping forward to pull the front like rowers on a living boat. Yet surviving on water is no simple task, even for such resilient creatures. Predators, harsh conditions, and their own physical limits constantly threaten the raft. Among their most persistent enemies are small fish, voracious hunters, always hungry for protein. Many freshwater fish try to prey on fire ants as their raft drifts downstream. But fortunately, the living raft comes with its own defense system. The outer ants are the battle-hardened soldiers, ready to bite and sting any predator that comes close. When a small fish snaps at them, the soldiers bite back, injecting venom into the fish's mouth, forcing it to let go. Not only fish, frogs also see fire ants as a tempting snack. But when a frog tries to lick the raft, the ants curl part of the raft upward, holding the perimeter and launching a coordinated attack. Even insect-eating birds sometimes swoop from above, but the outer ants raise their jaws to the sky, ready to fight back with active defense. Yet the most dangerous threat of all comes not from predators, but from the sun. When the water is calm and the sun beats down, the raft faces the risk of mass dehydration. The ants' bodies lose moisture, larvae may die, and the queen weakens. But fire ants are remarkably resilient. To survive this challenge, the surface and ants rotate positions, allowing others to take their place in the sun while they recover in the shade. They even build an extra living layer above the queen and larvae, forming a biological roof that shields the colony from direct heat. If the raft drifts into a river or strong current, the force of the water can threaten to break the formation. But the ants respond instinctively. They tighten the structure, curl the edges, and lock their jaws harder. Sometimes when the raft grows too large, it splits into two. But this is not the end. Each half becomes a new raft. And as long as the queen survives in one of them, the colony will live on. Amazingly, a fire ant living raft can survive for 1 to 3 weeks, but this endurance does not come without sacrifice. Some ants in the bottom layer inevitably die from exhaustion, drowning, or a lack of oxygen. Yet the colony is always ready to adapt. If one ant dies, another immediately takes its place, ensuring the raft remains whole. The living raft is not just a tool for survival. It is a symbol of resilience, adaptation, and extraordinary collective strategy. But beyond survival, fire ants use their living rafts as tools of invasion. This is why fire ants are among the most successful invasive species on Earth. What is a disaster for other creatures? A flood is for fire ants a golden opportunity for expansion. Once the raft reaches new land, the ants disperse in all directions, searching for a strategic location to build a new nest. They dig rapidly, and within 24 to 48 hours, a new colony is fully established, complete with tunnels and a chamber for the queen. With the queen alive and thousands of surviving workers, the colony reproduces, gathers food, and begins a new chapter of life. A fire ant nest is typically built in loose, sandy or clay soil, often found in fields, gardens, riverbanks, and even human backyards. They avoid shaded or overly damp locations. In hot climates, such as the southern United States, their nests can appear as mounds rising 30 to 40 centimeters high, with a diameter of up to 1 meter. But this visible mound is only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, the main structure of a fire ant nest spreads both horizontally and vertically, reaching depths of over 1 meter. Inside the nest is a complex fortress with dedicated chambers for the queen, eggs, larvae, pupae, and food storage. A network of transport tunnels and ventilation windows keeps the temperature stable and the air flowing. Fire ants organize their space with remarkable efficiency. The upper levels serve as workspaces and food storage, while the deeper chambers are a sacred sanctuary where the queen resides and lays eggs undisturbed. Everything in the colony is organized like a tiny kingdom, precise, hierarchical, and strategic. Yet this system is vulnerable to nature, especially to water. When heavy rains fall and the ground begins to flood, the nest can turn into a grave in a matter of hours. But like a city with pre-planned evacuation routes, fire ants follow an extraordinary protocol, a mass evacuation toward the water, not to drown, but to create new life upon it. The strength of a fire ant colony is not just in its numbers, but in its perfect division of labor. Behind hundreds of thousands of ants moving in constant motion, there is a social system tested by millions of years. Each individual knows its role. There are no slackers and no traitors. All bow to a single purpose, the survival of the colony. The queen is the heart of the colony. She is larger than the workers and carries one sacred duty: to lay eggs. From this duty, an entire kingdom is born. In a single day, she can produce hundreds to thousands of eggs, and her life may last 7 years or more, far longer than any worker or soldier. She resides in the deepest chamber of the nest, guarded closely, fed and groomed by loyal workers. Beyond the queen, there are the worker ants, the majority population of the colony. They are builders, carriers, caretakers, and daily defenders. They tend to the eggs, maintain the nest, forage for food, and even form their bodies into bridges or rafts when needed. Worker ants are also divided by age. The youngest work inside the nest, and as they mature, they are sent outside to face danger and exploration. When floods arrive, it is the workers who begin the raft, clamping onto one another in tight formation, laying the foundation of survival. Inside the colony, there are also soldier ants serving as guards and fighters. Not every colony has a dedicated soldier caste. In many, stronger workers double as defenders. They have larger, more powerful jaws, and their duty is to protect the colony from predators. When the raft floats on water, they form the outer defensive ring. They sting anything that approaches the raft: fish, birds, and even humans. For soldier ants, the raft is not a place of rest, but a floating fortress to be defended at all costs. The final caste is the male ant, born for one single purpose: to mate with the queen. After the nuptial flight, when he joins a young queen in the air for mating, the male meets his inevitable death. Their lifespan is brief but essential, ensuring the continuity of the colony. Within this social system, fire ants demonstrate a profound truth: cooperation above all else. Fire ants originate from South America, particularly Brazil and its surrounding regions. But thanks to their extraordinary survival skills and the strength of their colonies, they have become one of the most feared invasive species on Earth. They were introduced to the southern United States via cargo ships in the 1930s. Since then, they have spread like wildfire, reaching Australia, China, the Caribbean, and even Southeast Asia. Their name is no exaggeration. They truly sting like fire. Hidden within their tiny bodies is a microscopic weapon, a stinger that injects alkaloid venom known as solanopsin. For many creatures, from small insects to humans, this sting is not only painful, but can also be lethal. Unlike bees, which can sting only once, fire ants can sting repeatedly. They first bite with their jaws, locking onto the victim's skin, then curve their bodies, driving the stinger in and injecting venom. Instantly, a burning sensation erupts, followed by a red welt, which in just a few hours begins to transform into white blisters form, accompanied by an intense itching that can last for days. In allergic humans, this venom can trigger anaphylaxis, a severe immune reaction, causing difficulty breathing, swelling, and even death if left untreated. In large simultaneous attacks, fire ant stings can kill hatchlings, young mice, and even rabbits. Even cattle lying down on a fire ant mound can suffer skin loss and infection from a mass-biting assault. Fire ants also display startling military tactics, especially for creatures without a central brain. They can launch coordinated mass attacks. When an intruder steps on the nest, dozens to hundreds of ants erupt from the ground, spreading across the invader's body, then stinging all at once. When one ant detects danger, it releases alarm pheromones, triggering every nearby ant within tens of meters to join the assault. They can even encircle larger prey, like grasshoppers, forming a ring formation. The outer ring maintains the perimeter, while the inner ants systematically immobilize the prey. Even more astonishing is their resilience. Fire ants are not only relentless attackers, they are incredibly hard to kill. They do not die easily from water or minor impacts. They can survive even after losing legs or jaws, and continue to rise and attack, fighting until the very end. They are warriors without fatigue, without fear, and almost impossible to defeat.